Hello, the following video contains instructions and information on the pattern studio table installation. For more information, contact your local Haworth technical representative. The video will be broken up into three basic sections: overview and description of the product, installation of the table, and installation of the integrated electrical. Let's get started. Before we get started here with the product overview, we're going to take a look at a couple of the necessary tools for the patterns installation. A power driver, of course, you need for everything in life. Whereas in a carpenter square, any size, a 9/16" box wrench, self-centering drills, rubber mallets, clamps, and a level for the most part. These we made up. These are necessary to have just to minimize the amount of hands you need. And you're going to see in a few minutes as we start to assemble this product that this will minimize the hands you need on the job site. So these are definitely recommended to make up before your patterns job starts, and you'll be able to use them on all the patterns product. We're going to start with a description of the product. This is an end panel, or what we refer to as a vertical. We're going to build a studio table, which is just a top, a horizontal, and two verticals. Some features on this. This does have electric built into it, so this can be a powered table. There's different ways to access it, but everyone is going to have a box in the left and the right end panel because we're not sure where your power source is. So we've got these in here now with a tail that comes up for our modular power. So this is where your power and communications will come through and be wired up. Some other features. Here's where our connections will be made to our horizontals. There is a chase here where this electrical whip comes up to bring your power and communications up into the unit itself. Some of the important features of this are your preparation. If you want the pattern's job to turn out right, a couple things. Pace yourself, use patience when you build this thing, and prepare your products, and it will save you time. The important thing here is fit and finish, especially on the trim. So the upfront work will give you a better result. So take the time to do that. We've got our adjustment glides 1.5 inches that come out. So I have that. What a starting point on this is, how are you going to power this product? We have an opening here, so your power could come right through your raised floor if you happen to have that, and go right in here and keep the product as low to the ground as possible and very nice looking. If you're coming in with conduit from the side, I'm going to have to raise the glides up to give you a little bit different look, but that's something I want to know now rather than build the table and realize it all has to be jacked up because conduit has to be fished in. So some of that prep work, if you've got conduit already in the floor, a pigtail coming out, you may want to put it in here as you stand it up so somebody doesn't have to fish these things up later. So this is a product line where it takes a lot of cooperation between installers, electricians, communications people to make this product go fluidly as it should on the installation. Another feature is we have a skirt, kind of a floating skirt at the bottom that as I adjust the glides, the skirt would come down to conceal that. A few features of that, I don't know if you can see them, but there are some knockouts on the inside. So if I'm going to come in with communication cables or conduit, before I set this up and start building, I want to take a couple pliers and kind of cold work and pop some of these out to allow me room to have my conduit in. Now remember that if it's a 3/4 inch conduit coming in here, I need at least 3/4 inch to do that, so I'm going to have to back these glides out to start. So again, that's the prep work. Don't just set these things up and then realize you have to get power in and you're going to have to rework everything. So think a little bit out front. I'm just going to take mine to about 1 inch here and show you what that looks like. Okay, now I'll have enough travel on the bottom here for my conduit to come in through my knockouts. So that's basically it for the end panel or vertical. We have the horizontal here. We'll take a look at the horizontal. We have it staged on a panel cart ready to go. Some features on that, it comes ready to go. The hardware's already attached. I don't have to do anything. It's lift it in place and start to build. A few other features are the electrical and communication access. We do have a trough in the back here, so your power or cable can come up the end panels or verticals and into the horizontal through here. On a studio table, it's common to access it through here through an electrical flip top, which we'll get into in the electrical section. So let's go ahead and build some product. One thing I want to do before I get too far here, Haworth does ship shims. I don't know if you can see these 3 different thicknesses with each end panel. I may need to use that between where my trim fits up and the actual horizontal. I want a nice fit and a nice even gap due to tolerances and things like that. To get it perfect, we do send some shims with. You may not need them, or you may. A good thing to do up front is what I'll do here and check on this end panel. There's generally some consistencies of this, so if I'm building 10 tables that all came in the same time and I need the shims on the first one, I'll probably need them on all of them. But it's a good thing to check up front before you get too far into it and have to go backwards. I'm going to take a piece of trim for now, and I'll give you a greater detail on some of the trim in the next segment. But what I'm going to do is kind of put it in place, and I'm going to check for an overlap here. If this is flush, I'm fine to go on and build without the shims, but if the trim sticks out over this edge, that's where I want to use one of the shims. So what I'm going to do is just kind of take this up and hold it to find the right one where it's flush, and then I'll go from there. The medium seems to be a pretty good fit, so I'm going to go ahead with my medium one, and we'll stick those in as I build this unit. So now I can go ahead and take my trim back off, and we'll get this set up. So what I'm going to do, take my stanchion. I've got the other one in the stanchion already. Now that I've decided what trim I have to use and what shims, I put some protection on the back here so I don't scratch my laminate or veneer systems. We'll get our clamps on there. And what we'll do is make sure we got the right dimension. That should get us pretty close to start. Now very carefully, we'll put our trim into the end panels. And now that I know I needed that shim, now would be a good time to put that in. And basically it's going to just fit between the vertical and horizontals just to take up some space. So we'll get those in. Now what we'll do for our fit and finish on how these connect, we'll open up our hardware kit. You're going to get 4 nuts, 4 rectilinear washers, and 4 of the eccentric cams. Now the eccentric cams are offset. As I rotate this, that is going to change my height of my top relationship so that the trim sits up flush. So that's something I'm going to want to do up front. So we'll separate the hardware. Then what we'll do, we'll start at one corner. A few things you got to check here. Make sure your sides and your horizontals are flush. You don't want to get the top relationship and then find out you're offset here and have to loosen everything up again. So you want to make sure you're good there. What we're going to do is take the eccentric cam. We'll get those on here. Now we'll go ahead and adjust those. What we're going to use, there's a couple different ways to do this, and installers, you guys are going to be creative and find probably better ways to do this. But 2 different ways to get this trim flush with the top. A good starting point is you can use these little wood blocks or gauges that you can get from Haworth for relatively inexpensive, and that will start to tell you the fit up here of which way this top has to go. That's going to get you very close. What a good idea is, after I'm close with this, pop this trim on to double check it. And if the trim is flush and I'm happy with it, what I'm going to do is leave the trim right here. The trim should all be the same size, but due to manufacturing process, there might be some variabilities. So I want to keep this here so when it goes on, it's this piece, not some other piece. So kind of keep it staged in that area, and I think you'll be a lot better off. We've got a kit ready to go here. I've got my cams, 2 nuts, my rectilinear washers. What we'll do is take our eccentric cam. We're going to put it on over these bolts. And now, like the instruction just showed us, we're going to turn that to get the appropriate height here to match this up so our trim fits good. Again, I'm going to use the little gauge block here. The instructions did show a little special tool to get in here. Different ways to do it. You can do it with an awl. You can do it by hand on these smaller tops, which I'm going to. Or if you want to get creative, you can even take a coat hanger and bend these things into more of these little hooks. Or you can get them from Haworth. whatever works for you on the job site. So what we're going to do now is make sure we're flush side to side. Put some downward pressure on. Get it till we're happy. And then what we're going to do is put on the washer. Our nut, we're going to take, what's easiest is to get a little box wrench, and we're going to keep some downward pressure. We're going to get that snug. You don't want to keep cranking and bend the washers, but get it nice and snug. So we've got one side, now we'll go to the other side. Do the same thing, make sure our gauge is flush. And again, the side to side, always check that from side to side, because if you're going to change it later and pull them, the cams will turn and you'll have to start over. So it's something you got to kind of do together. Once you're happy there, we'll repeat the same process. And put that on. Now, as a double check, before I go any further, I'm going to go ahead and take my trim and make sure I'm happy with the fit and finish. If I am, then what I'm going to do, like we talked about earlier, is take it off, leave it staged here. Now we're going to go ahead and do the other side. We've got our top vertical trim on. We're happy with our relationship between the horizontal and vertical. So the next thing we're going to do is square the unit up and put our corner braces on all four corners. Corner braces will come ready to go. We also have them in 3 ways in case you're doing different applications. But what that's going to do is just hold these 2 pieces together and also help hold some of the trim on. The trim will go into this plastic strip here and also continue on at the end here. So we'll have something holding that trim on at the far edge. So what we're going to do is take our self-centering drill. We're going to make sure we're square. We're happy. That's very important, especially on the file enclosures, which is the same principle, only a little taller. When you put a nice square file in here and level the files, this detail is real visible. So you want to make sure you take the extra time to square the unit up. The reason we're using the self-centering drill, because they are not pilot holes, since there is some adjustment here. We cannot pre-drill the holes in place at the factory, and you don't want a screw to go in a little bit crooked and pull something over and change that relationship. So we like to have the screw centered before we go on. Now we're to the point where we're going to put on our trim. We have our top vertical trim on already. We left that in place. There are lefts and rights to this, and I want to make sure you're clear on that. The outside is beveled on a 45 all the way down. The inside is beveled up to the last 3 inches. The product is 3 inches thick, so that will give us a left and right hand. Also notice the aluminum inlay is going to be visible, and that's going to be offset on one side so the next piece of trim can come into it. So keep in mind there are lefts and rights for the vertical trim. What we have on here, and I'll take this off to show you, we have the vertical trim already on. That's a little unique. The outside is beveled, the inside is cut straight, but a little bit different because the inlay on the opposite side here, the aluminum is not going to be seen. We've put a black spacer in to take up that space. We still have something dimensionally there to take up the space, it's just not aluminum, but again, that won't be seen. So we'll take this one, put it back in place. We're going to start here and work around either direction, but start with a vertical or horizontal vertical and keep going in that sequence. You'll have a lot better time with your fit and finish and less adjustments to be made. I need a left-hand corner here, so I'll take that. What I'm going to do is tap it to make sure my inlays are flush when they put these into the factory. If they're offset a little bit and I install them that way, you're going to have more to adjust, more trim to do. So what I'm going to do is just flush them up. And what we'll do then is get this in place. again, it's going to lock into the center bead. What's good to use on the first installation is a bar of soap or wax, whatever type of wax you want. If you want to get it from whatever resource you can, what we're going to do is take that and rub that along that inside. The first time it just lets that go on a little easier. There's less pounding, there's less pressure on that, especially if you're doing it with your hand. So it does speed the trim up a little bit. We'll pop that on if you have to. On the laminate, you can use a rubber mallet if you want to. Of course, be careful. If this was veneer, I'm not going to recommend using a rubber mallet. What I am going to say, if you do need a mallet, also use a nylon block, the square block that we typically use with our systems furniture. Make sure you put that on the veneer and hit the block itself and not dent the veneer with this. But again, this is plastic, and the ABS, it's a little more durable. So we've got that on. The next one we're going to do is our long horizontal piece. There is no top and bottom to this one. What I'm going to do again is we'll take the wax on both sides, get it flush with one end. I want to start hitting it about a foot in, not right at the end. That's not the most structural sound part. So we want to come into about here. And again, then make sure I'm happy. And the last piece we'll take and wax up. Flush our aluminum. Now what we're going to want to do is just some of the detail work. Make sure our edges line up, make sure things are flush. And also the aluminum on the side here. If you can take a look at this, it's in the low position. What I'm going to do now is bring these two pieces together. Some of the last detail, we're going to get these two pieces flush, and also if you can see the small gap on the aluminum inlay, what you're going to want to do is take a straight slot screwdriver or something that works best for you and just push that detail up. If the need arises to remove trim during reconfigurations or anything like that, what works the best is the trim removal tool. It is a part by Haworth. You can probably find something at the hardware store also, but it just has a return flange on, so I can go to the bottom, pull the trim out, and remove it. That's the easiest method to remove it. Why don't we take a look at electrical? Next, we're going to put the integrated power into the studio table. What we're going to use is a flip top unit. What that will do is let us access the power by flipping this. It has 3 receptacles. These are for circuit 1. You can order them for any of the circuits that you want to. And it has 3 blanks for communication. So this is, again, a spot where you're going to work real close with your comm guys to get their things in before I pop these things in and finish it off. With the units, you also get a lot of the adapter plates to work with the most common communication adapters and blanks if you're not going to use them, so you can cap them off. On this particular unit, 72 inches wide, it gives me an extension to use. So again, the instructions that we just showed will walk you through each size table, what parts you're supposed to have for that particular table. So what we're going to do is take this, join it together, make sure it's locked on all these electrical connections, like with systems furniture too. You don't want to put this together and find out a receptacle's not working and then start that whole process of tracking it down. So make sure things are put together right. Now this is fed from one angle only, so they're kind of directional. My power source is coming from that side, so this should work out. But if it was from the other side, you would have to coil this around and go back in that direction because this elbow is only made to go one way. So what we're going to do now is feed it. We put some cardboard up here. It's laminate, pretty durable stuff, but we also make this in veneer too, and we don't want to scratch. The flexible conduit can kind of act like a rasp on some of these edges, so you want to be careful as you do that you don't damage the expensive top as you do it. So what we'll do is take this, put it down through our electrical channel. Looks like Ross has it on the other end, and what we're going to do is give him as much slack as we can or he needs. And what we're going to do is put the circuit distributor on. That's going to allow these two pieces to connect together. So now our connections are made. What we typically like to do is put the excess into the vertical versus the horizontal, because I may have communication cables and things in here. So next, now that we've got in here, we'll go ahead and install this box. Now that we've got the excess cables put in the vertical, we're going to install the power hatch. It also comes with an L bracket. What is that for? That goes in and allows the conduit and the cables to be on one side of it so they don't interfere with the operation of the flip-top unit itself. So once we have that in there, we make sure it fits, everything's going to work properly. Now I'm going to leave these open for my communications. That's what would be done at this time. Let them go ahead and run their wires. Let's pretend that's done. Then what we'll do is when we're ready to permanently attach this, we'll take the clips, it will still be removable, but this will keep it from walking around. Put that into place, and that takes care of the electrical. That ends our session on the Patterns studio table installation. Watch for more videos coming out with Patterns product. Words of wisdom on the Patterns line would be patience. It's not a panel system. You're not going to take it out of the truck and quick slap the panels together. Do some of the pre-work to make it look good. It comes down to final fit and finish on the trim, so look for that level of detail as you go through here. Work very closely with your local Haworth tech reps, and have a good day.